Hi, my name is Hugo Gaioso, and I'm from Brazil. I study electrical engineering, and I'm just about to take some courses related to that area here in Canada.
Hi, my name is Yuta Tanaka, and I'm from Japan, and my major is international relations. So I'm really interested in the multinational situation in Toronto.
Hi, my name is Hugo and I'm from Brazil too. I came to Toronto to study health science at U of T, and I really enjoy to know different cultures in Toronto.
We are from different areas of study, but now we are together to learn English at the University of Toronto. When we got here, we noticed different cultures and backgrounds living together in their towns. Just by working, we can go to Greek town, Chinatown, Koreatown, Little Italy, Little Portugal, and so on. It's an amazing the fact that we can find small versions of the countries in a single city.
One day, we went to a market to buy some groceries. The guy at the cashier seemed to be Asian, and we tried to improve our speaking to make him understand us. But when he started to talk, man, he had the most Canadian accent ever. We thought it was funny, and then we started to think that even though the people have their own towns, they tend to lose their culture as generations goes by.
As a project day activity, we decided to investigate immigrants and their families and develop an understanding of immigrants and lose your culture. We used the city of Toronto as our lab and the people living in here as our lab heads for this experiment and learn more about the cultures.
We started our journey researching on the internet about the topic. We found this man named Jason Lee. He seemed to fit exactly in our experiment, so we decided to interview him.
So my story involves my family. They originally were born in South Korea, my mother and father. They moved to Canada in 1978. I was born in 1981. I was actually born in Korea, but I moved to Canada with my family. I've lived here in Toronto since 1982. So I've lived here for 33 of my 34 years of life. So English is my first language. I'm 34 years old right now. I started learning Korean, reading, writing, and speaking at the age of 29.
We asked Jason what he think about the sentence. As generations pass, the culture tends to dissipate.
I thought that growing up I was the only one, but I realized as you grow up, if you lived in Canada for the majority of your life, you're going to find other people who embrace Canadian culture more than their native culture, their heritage. And definitely I believe that as generations pass, no matter how much you pass on, it will never be the same as the original. History is important, even whether it's Korean history, Canadian history, all history, because there's a story behind where you're from and who you are. So as I'm getting a little older, I was given the opportunity to embrace my culture and learn my culture. So it's the one thing I learned, even at age 34, it's never too late. Never too late. Really, really, never too late.
Then we looked for some of the teachers from our school. They have different backgrounds, so it was not hard to find someone with an interesting story. We found Jennifer Harris.
I'm a first generation Canadian, which means both of my parents were not born here. I was the first in my family to be born here. So all of my family, my cousins and my aunts and uncles, are still in Scotland. My grandmother, my father's mother, came, and then my father and my mother came. I didn't really feel like I was Scottish until I was a little bit older, and then I realized, wait a minute, my family's very Scottish. When I was old enough to see what other families were doing, for example, the way we eat, the food that we eat. I never had pasta when I was growing up. I had no idea what spaghetti was. My mother never could. That was very exotic in my house. My father always wanted his meat, potatoes, and vegetables every night at the same time. So that's what we ate. That's what my mom grew up with. But when I got a little bit older and I started seeing other things and I was a bit more self-aware, I realized that my family was actually quite Scottish.
We asked Jim to comment the same sentence that Jason Lee did.
I think there's another side of it. There's a famous movie in Canada. It was called My Big Fat Greek Wedding, and it's about a family that's growing up, and they're Greek Canadians, and the parents are really holding on to Greek culture. And sometimes what happens is they forget that things are changing in Greece and things are becoming more modern, and they are hanging on to the old traditional ways. And I think sometimes when they go back to their home, like, oh, Greece isn't the same as when I left.
Ask Jennifer if she still feels linked to Scottish culture.
There's something in you, I think, that and that comes like I don't know how your culture or even a past culture gets passed down, but it's in there. You feel a connection.
Last person we chose is also from our school. Priyanka is in our class and she has a very interesting story of immigration.
So my parents are from Sri Lanka. My mom moved to India, and from India she moved to France, where she was living for, I think, 2 years. And then she got married to my dad and moved to Germany. Yeah, a year after I was born, so I was living in Germany for 20 years, finished my high school, and then I think it was end of this April, I moved with my family to Canada. My first language was Tamil, so I learned everything in Tamil first. And then in Germany, you have to go to the kindergarten, so that's the first time when I went out of house, so it was of age of 6. Then I started to learn a totally new language, which was German. So I was talking in Tamil at home, but learning German out of the house. My parents were really pushing me to know certain things, to learn the language, how to read, how to write. So it was for them important. So I think if your family wants it, you will automatically follow it. But if they don't show much interest, then you will lose it. But in the future, you will regret it, for sure.
After listening all the people we interviewed, we start to think that losing the culture is more related with your environment than with how much time has passed since the immigration.
We thought that the culture will disappear naturally with ages, but in fact it can last from one generation up to 10 generations or more. How long it takes the culture to disappear or not depends on the family members if they maintain their traditions or not.
It's hard to live as the same way in a different country, but it is possible to preserve the culture with some adaptations. One thing interesting is that our origins will always mean something for us in a certain point in our lives. Color of our skin, the way we look, the old family photographs are traces of our previous culture. Preserving that history is a form of understanding where we come from. When we don't know about our history, we definitely will miss it at some point in the future.